BBC Radio Kent. Hello, how you doing? I don't know if you saw it overnight. We've been talking about it on the radio through the day. Oh, larger than life, a king of pop culture. In the 1980s and 90s, film, TV and American politics, he dominated it all. Best known for his wrestling career. Ripping off his shirt and his signature moves made him a big star. Hulk Hogan, who's died at the age of 78.
And now, introducing the World Wrestling Federation Heavyweight Champion, Hulk Hogan!
Hulkamania's gonna run really wild. And I have one question. What you gonna do when SmackDown Hulkamania runs wild on you? What you gonna do?
Hulk Hogan, one of America's best-known wrestling stars who's died, and he was known as Hulk, real name Terry, known for his flowing blonde hair, iconic handlebar moustache, died at his home in Florida yesterday. He was first seen in the ring back in 1978, became that defining figure of the industry, the red, the yellow outfits, that real American entrance music you just heard. Trump was a fan, and army of Hulkamaniac fans. He continued wrestling well into his 50s. Let's talk this afternoon to Jon Moores. He's from the Genesis professional wrestling team. He runs the Gen Pro Academy in Maidstone. Good to have you with us, Jon.
Thanks for having me on. It's good to speak to you.
What impact did actually Hulk Hogan truly have on the world of wrestling, would you say?
I mean, I think that the product we see today is largely influenced by what they did in the 1980s, and without Hulk Hogan at the front and centre of it, it wouldn't be what it is today.
There's something about that period as well. You and I both grew up when we first saw sort of Hulk Hogan coming through. You know, that 80s, 90s period was so monumental, wasn't it, for this American wrestling idea coming over. We, of course, over here had Giant Haystacks and Big Daddy.
Absolutely. It was very different feel to the product they were putting out there to what we had over here, wasn't it?
Not that was a problem, because that was also really entertaining, because a lot of it is, as well as the peak performance stuff, it was about performance. There's a big theatricality of it all. And do you think that both sides of the Atlantic is what makes wrestling so unique?
Absolutely. I think in the UK we have a lot more tradition. It was a lot grittier. It was sort of like, working men in clubs and pubs up and down the country. And over in the States, it was all larger than life, Disney lights, pyro, big muscular bodies and an impressive presentation that made it what it is.
I was thinking about the first time I ever saw him on that world stage or in the ring is my cousins from Ireland, where wrestling was really massive in the 80s, and they sent me and my brothers over a VHS cassette that we put in, which was from Sky B, if people remember it back in the day, British Sky Broadcasting. They had it over there in Ireland. We didn't have it over here, so we were watching Hulk Hogan and characters like Jake the Snake Roberts. It was something we'd never experienced. It was a whole new world, wasn't it?
It really was. I mean, we go from the Big Daddies and Giant Haystacks to these kind of cartoonish-like characters. You've got the policeman and the snake charmer and, Hulk Hogan, the real American hero. It was a very different feel, but, what they did was absolutely amazing. And, he truly was a leader in that locker room at the time and in the business.
It's important to say Hogan will be also remembered for controversy, such as being caught saying a racist slur on tape and taking aim at Kamala Harris during the 2024 election campaign. I wonder, though, what the wrestling legacy will leave behind with him there. I mean, do young wrestlers, those that you know today, do they really know him? He was still fighting, wrestling into his later years. Did they know who he was?
I think it's hard pushed to not know who he is these days. It's one of those where he did have such an impact on business, and he was still relevant with everything that he was doing. He was on WWE not too long ago, where he was booed, obviously, by the fans for, not liking him as much as they used to, perhaps. But they did keep him very relevant. He was still a very larger-than-life character. Certainly in my academy, they all know who he is.
Right. Who do your generation now, who are training with you, who do they look up to, though? Is there someone's take on the kind of moves that he had?
Yeah, I think, these days there's a mix. So the guys coming through will have their favourites, like we all had our favourites back in the day. So, the Will Ospreays of the generation, obviously being an English guy, making it big in the States at the moment. You've got people like Roman Reigns, John Cena, the sort of the modern crop of talent over there that people really love.
And you mentioned John Cena there. That's the side, isn't it, that we have, that kind of movie star, wrestler, bit like The Rock, the same thing. You have those people who started off in wrestling and then become these big movie stars, exactly like Hulk Hogan did.
Exactly, and I think without Hogan doing what he did back in the 80s with the Rocky films and the Mr. Nannies and all that, you wouldn't have the crossover potential that people like The Rock and John Cena and Batista and all those guys have had today.
Your own academy is ongoing, doing lots of wrestling events. You've got your next one coming up, I think, on, was it the 14th of September? Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do Ball in Nightclub down in Maidstone. We've got a double show that day. So if you're a fan of the WWE, then that's the kind of show that we're looking for. It's a nightclub presentation. We've got big screens, glitz and glamour, lots of storylines going on with ongoing feuds and some of the best wrestlers from across the UK and from our own academy.
So when we look at this idea of wrestling, people who have seen it up close, there is a real theatre nature of it all, and Hulk Hogan obviously personified that. But can you just give us, just for a moment, that sense of the hard work it takes to be able to do that? Because the effort into it, some people have obviously claimed over the years that, it's just completely all stage acting. How do you make sure that you've got a wrestler who can do the job?
I mean, there's so much more goes into it than just being an actor. For a start, we're very big on it's physical theatre almost. So you're having to take bumps, you're having to lay your strikes in, you're having to be very competent in what you're doing, confident to do the moves, but also in a way that you're not going to cripple somebody or yourself in the process. And it's drilling, it's going to the gym, it's dialing in your nutrition, it's being able to stand up in front of a crowd and almost make a fool of yourself or portray a character that you want to put over to an audience without being nervous, shy, receding into yourself. Because, I mean, if you look at what you see Hulk Hogan do in front of an audience, if he was anxious, that wouldn't have gone over. He wouldn't have been the megastar that he was. So you have to kind of get over all that. And it's bringing everything together to create something that's almost undefinable in what it is we do.
Really great having you on BBC Radio Kent. Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Talking about Hulk Hogan, Jon Moores from Gen Pro Wrestling Academy in Maidstone and Genesis Professional Wrestling, which he runs. Find out more on socials at Gen Pro Online. Talking about that today.